Okay.
All right, welcome back to Reflections, everyone, where we talk about all things Church of Christ with the Elijah Message. It is wonderful to be back with you, spending this time together. So there's a couple of interesting ideas that converge a bit. And the first is that God is a God of relationships. You know, within God Himself, there are these three manifestations, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And they are in relationship to creation, in relationship to each other. And then the idea that the Bible really deals with two things. It deals with how we relate to God and how we relate to each other, and how all of that relates to creation, and how all that relates to God. And it's interesting, we get this idea from, the great medieval Jewish scholar Maimonides, that there are 613 laws of Moses. And in modern times, since a lot of the commandments dealt with the priest in the temple, and some of the commandments deal with specifically in the land of Israel, that Judaism as a whole has about 270. But there's this interesting Jewish idea. He's like, how do you keep all these commandments? And what they say is, pick 5 and do them really well, and then work on the rest of them the rest of your life. And that's just a really interesting idea to think about. Let's go to the Gospel of Matthew. Let's go to chapter 22. Let's pick up in verse 34 here. Now this is right after Jesus has had a discussion about the resurrection with the Sadducees, which didn't believe in the resurrection. All right, chapter 22, verse 34. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, a scholar of biblical law, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, quoting Deuteronomy. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, from Leviticus. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And it's interesting here. So Jesus says, we love God and we love our neighbor as ourselves. And we say that this is what the Bible deals with, how we relate to God and how we relate to each other. And so we generally believe that how this is accomplished is we keep the 10 commandments. The first 4 commandments deal with how we relate to God. And the remaining 6 commandments is how we relate to each other. And it's interesting that Jesus picks up on this idea back in Matthew chapter 19, where he's talking to the rich man. And the rich man is like, well, what commandments should I keep? So chapter 19, particularly in verse 18 here. And the rich man said, which commandments should I keep? And Jesus said, Thou shalt do not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness, lie under oath. Honor thy father and thy mother. And thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, from Leviticus. And you notice that the list that Jesus gives here is summarized at the end. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Those are the commandments that deal with how we relate to each other. And so we could take this really wonderful Jewish idea and we could say, okay, take the 10 commandments and pick 5 and do them really well. And then work on the rest of them the rest of your lives. And see how much closer you get to God. How much closer you get to Jesus. Just an interesting idea to think about and to ponder. My brothers and sisters, it's been wonderful spending this time with you, thinking about these things, praying about them, seeing if it speaks in your life. Until next time, I invite you into the Elijah Message House.